Commander Vexthal stood on the bridge of the Dominion's edge, watching Earth grow larger in the view screen. The blue marble looked peaceful, almost inviting, with its swirling white clouds and vast oceans. Nothing like the war-torn worlds they conquered in the Proxima System, or the crystalline hellscapes of the vegan territories. This would be simple. Preliminary scans complete, Commander, reported Navigator Zikari, her elongated fingers dancing across the holographic interface. Population approximately 8 billion. Multiple nation-states, currently engaged in what appears to be a global conflict. Vexthal's mandibles clicked in amusement. Perfect. They're already weakening themselves. Standard invasion protocol. Wait for the current war to exhaust their resources, then move in for cleanup operations. The Zilithian Empire had perfected this strategy across 47 worlds. Find a planet in conflict. Let the inhabitants destroy each other, then sweep in to claim the survivors as a labor force. It was efficient, cost-effective, and rarely resulted in significant casualties among their forces. Sir, Zikari's voice carried a note of confusion. The conflict appears to be extensive. I'm reading weapon signatures unlike anything in our database. Show me. The view screen shifted to display a tactical overlay of Earth's surface. Red markers peppered every continent, indicating active combat zones. But these weren't the usual energy weapons or kinetic projectiles they'd encountered elsewhere. These signatures were different. Analysis suggests they're using controlled nuclear fusion in their weapons, ZH reported, her voice tight with disbelief. Not for power generation, for destruction. Vexthal's primary arms crossed over his chest. In 300 years of conquest, he'd never encountered a species that weaponized their own starfire. Impossible. No sentient race would be that reckless. I'm also detecting chemical weapons, biological agents, and what appears to be... Zikari paused, double-checking her readings. Kinetic bombardment from orbit. They're dropping metal rods from space platforms. The bridge fell silent, except for the hum of the ship's systems. Vexthal had seen worlds tear themselves apart, but nothing like this. Most species fought with whatever advanced technology they possessed. Energy shields, plasma cannons, maybe crude missiles. But this planet's inhabitants had turned their star's power into handheld death, poisoned their own air, and turned their satellites into weapons. Sir, incoming transmission from the surface. Communications Officer Redhan announced. It's addressed to us. They detected our approach? Vexthal's confidence wavered. Their stealth technology had fooled every other species they'd encountered. No, sir. It's a general broadcast. They're transmitting to everyone. The view screen flickered, and suddenly they were looking at a human face. Male, weathered, with gray hair and eyes that seemed to hold the weight of countless battles. He wore a simple military uniform, and behind him, smoke rose from a burning city. To any extraterrestrial forces monitoring our planet, the human began, his voice steady despite the chaos visible behind him. My name is General Marcus Chun, representing the United Earth Defense Coalition. We are aware you may be watching our current conflict and considering an opportunity. Vexthal's mandibles spread wide in shock. They knew. Somehow, impossibly, they knew. I want to be clear about something, General Chin continued. What you're witnessing is not weakness. This is Tuesday. We have been fighting wars for 10,000 years. We have perfected the art of killing each other with rocks, sticks, chemicals, diseases, fire, and the power of atoms themselves. We fight over resources, territory, religion, politics, and sometimes just because we're bored. The general stepped closer to the camera, and Vexthal could see something in those human eyes that made his combat-hardened soul shiver. But we have one rule that has never been broken in our entire history. The moment an outside force threatens our planet, we stop fighting each other and start fighting them. And we are very, very good at fighting. The transmission cut to scenes of human warfare, missiles that could level cities, soldiers who fought with relentless determination even when outnumbered, aircraft that moved like metal birds of prey, ships that could reduce mountains to dust. We don't need a second chance, General Chin said, his image returning to the screen. We don't need mercy. We don't need to learn from our mistakes, because we've already made them all. Every form of warfare you can imagine, we've mastered. Every tactical scenario we've lived through, every weapon you might deploy, we've either invented something worse. The signal showed human forces across the globe simultaneously ceasing their attacks on each other. Tanks that had been firing at enemy positions turned their guns skyward. Pilots who had been locked in dogfights began flying in formation. Ships that had been hunting each other started coordinating their movements. "So here's our offer," General Chin said, his voice carrying the weight of 8 billion souls. "Leave now, and we'll pretend this never happened. We'll go back to our regular scheduled programming of trying to kill each other in creative ways. Stay, and you'll discover why we're the only species in the galaxy that considers warfare a form of art." The transmission ended, leaving the bridge of the Dominion's edge in stunned silence. "Commander," Nickuri whispered, "long-range sensors are detecting massive energy signatures across their surface. They're powering up weapon systems we didn't even know existed." Vexthol stared at the innocent-looking blue planet that had just delivered the most polite declaration of war he'd ever heard. For the first time in his career, he wondered if they'd chosen the wrong target. The Dominion's edge hung in space like a predator reconsidering its prey. Vexthol had called an emergency council meeting, and the ship's senior officers gathered in the strategy chamber, their faces reflecting the uncertainty that had settled over the fleet. "Intelligence report," Vexthol commanded, his voice lacking its usual confidence. Science Officer Krelva activated the holographic display, showing a three-dimensional model of Earth's surface. "The humans have demonstrated coordination capabilities that exceed our projections. Within 6 hours of the transmission, global warfare has ceased. Their various factions are consolidating resources and redirecting military assets." The display zoomed in on specific regions. "Here, in what they call the Pacific Theater, naval forces from opposing nations are now sharing intelligence and coordinating patrols. European and Asian powers have begun joint research initiatives. Even their space-based assets are being retasked for defense." "How is this possible?" demanded General Mordhan, the fleet's ground operations commander. "Our xenobiologists assured us that species this diverse couldn't achieve rapid unification." "The humans appear to have practiced," Krelvar replied grimly. "Historical analysis shows they've done this before. When their planet was threatened by natural disasters, resource scarcity, or in their limited off-world conflicts, they demonstrated remarkable unity. They call it closing ranks." Vexthol's primary arms flexed involuntarily. "What of their technology? Surely they can't match our advancement." "Sir, that's where our analysis becomes troubling." Krelvar manipulated the display to show weapon signatures. "While they lack our faster-than-light travel and energy shielding, their weapons technology follows a completely different development path. They focus on making their warfare increasingly efficient and deadly." The hologram displayed a human soldier in combat gear. "A single human infantry unit carries more destructive potential than our standard assault teams. Their firearms use chemical propulsion to fire metal projectiles at supersonic speeds. Simple, reliable, and devastating against organic targets. But surely our armor... They've developed projectiles specifically designed to penetrate armor, sir. Depleted uranium cores, tungsten penetrators, explosive tips. They don't just want to stop an enemy. They want to ensure that enemy cannot regenerate, cannot be repaired, cannot ever fight again." The display shifted to show human aircraft. Their atmospheric vehicles are designed for maximum lethality. They carry weapons that can level city blocks, disable electronic systems, or saturate entire areas with toxic chemicals. And they've been refining these designs through constant warfare for decades. Vexthol felt a chill run through his exoskeleton. Surely they can't project force beyond their atmosphere. "Sir, they've been militarizing space for over a century. They have weapons platforms in orbit, armed satellites, and the capacity to launch kinetic interceptors. They may not have starflight, but they've turned their entire solar system into a fortress." The chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. They'd encountered civilizations with superior technology, but never one so thoroughly dedicated to the art of warfare. "There's more," Krelva continued reluctantly. "Psychological analysis suggests that humans suffer from what we might call constructive paranoia. They continuously prepare for conflicts that may never occur. They war-game scenarios against enemies they haven't met, develop weapons for threats they only imagine, and maintain military readiness even during peacetime. Communications Officer Redhan interrupted with an urgent tone. "Sir, we're receiving multiple transmissions from the surface. They're not directed at us. They appear to be internal communications." "Show us." The holographic display, filled with intercepted human communications. Military channels buzzed with activity as forces coordinated globally. But it wasn't the efficient, cold communication of a military machine. It was passionate, determined, almost eager. "Alpha Squadron, this is command. New orders, orbital defense priority. Time to show these visitors what human ingenuity looks like." "Roger that, command. Boys have been working on some new toys. Always wanted to field test them against real aliens. Engineering core here. We've got surprise packages ready for deployment. If these visitors want to play rough, we're ready to get creative." Vexthol's mandibles clicked nervously. "They sound excited." "That's what concerns me most, sir," Krovar replied. "Most species view warfare as a necessary evil. Humans appear to view it as a challenging sport. They're not afraid of us. They're looking forward to contests." Another transmission crackled through the speakers. This time it was civilian channels. "My grandson's graduating from the academy next month. If these aliens think they can interrupt his ceremony, they've got another thing coming. Been working on the farm defense systems all week. Clara's got the chemical dispensers ready, and I've got the kinetic barriers operational. Let 'em come." Research Lab has been developing theoretical anti-spacecraft weapons for years. Finally get to see if they work. The communications painted a picture of a species that didn't just accept warfare, they embraced it. From civilians preparing improvised defenses to military forces eager to test new weapons, the humans seem to be treating the invasion as an anticipated challenge rather than an existential threat. "Sir," Navigator Shuri spoke up, "I'm detecting massive energy buildups across their surface. They're not just preparing defenses. They're preparing to attack." "Attack? They can't possibly reach us at this distance." "Sir, they're launching something. Multiple somethings. I count. Over 3,000 projectiles leaving their atmosphere." Vexthol's eyes widened. "Missiles?" "Not exactly, sir. They appear to be kinetic projectiles. Simple metal rods, but they're moving very fast. And they're not aimed at us." "Then what?" The answer came as the first projectile struck one of their outer patrol ships. The swift Talon simply vanished in a flash of light as a tungsten rod, accelerated to a significant fraction of light speed, obliterated the vessel entirely. "They're not just defending," Vexthol realized with growing horror. "They're hunting us." More projectiles streaked past, each one precisely targeted at Zilithian vessels. The humans had somehow calculated their positions and trajectories, turning their entire planet into a massive weapons platform. "Sir," Redhan called out, "incoming transmission from the surface. It's General Chin again." The human's face appeared on screen, and this time he was smiling. "Greetings again, friends. I hope you enjoyed our opening demonstration. Those were just our basic kinetic impactors. We have much more interesting weapons, if you'd like to see them." Behind him, the sky lit up with launch flares as more projectiles left Earth's atmosphere. "We've been waiting for this opportunity for decades," General Chin continued. "A real test of our capabilities. Thank you for providing it." The Dominion's edge shuddered as another kinetic projectile passed close enough to disrupt their shield harmonics. Vexthol gripped the command throne, his knuckles white beneath his exoskeleton. Around him, the bridge crew worked frantically to coordinate evasive maneuvers. "Fleet status," he barked. 7 ships destroyed, 12 damaged, reported Tactical Officer Yexlara. "The humans' targeting accuracy is impossible. They're calculating our position changes faster than we can make them. How can they predict our movements?" "Sir, I believe they're using quantum entanglement tracking. Somehow, they've tagged our ships with quantum markers. Every time we move, they know instantly." Vexthol's mind reeled. Quantum entanglement for military tracking was theoretical even for the Zilithians. When could they have tagged us? when we first entered their solar system, sir. I believe those space debris fields we passed through weren't debris at all. They were sensor mines designed to attach quantum trackers to anything that passed through. The realization hit like a physical blow. The humans had been expecting them, not just preparing for invasion, expecting the specific invasion by the specific fleet at the specific time. Communications get me General Chun. Now, the human appeared on screen almost instantly, as if he'd been waiting for the call. Behind him, the command center hummed with activity. Humans move with practiced efficiency, their faces showing neither fear nor hesitation. Commander Vexthal, General Chin said, somehow knowing his name despite never being introduced. I was hoping you'd call. We have a great deal to discuss. How did we know you were coming? How did we know your fleet composition? How did we know your tactical preferences? Chen's smile was unsettling. We've been watching you for 3 years, Commander, ever since you conquered the Altarian colonies. The bridge fell silent. The Altarian system was 12 light-years away. The humans couldn't possibly have faster-than-light communication. I can see your confusion, Chen continued. Let me explain. When you destroyed the Altarian research station, one of their deep space probes was in the outer system. It recorded everything. The probe's quantum communication link was still active, and it transmitted the data to every listening post in this sector. Impossible. Humans don't have quantum communication. We do now. The Altarians taught us in their final transmission, along with your ship specifications, tactical doctrine, and command structure. They wanted someone to carry on their work. We volunteered. Vexthal felt the foundations of his understanding crumble. You've been in contact with other species? Commander, humans have been monitoring deep space for over a century. We've cataloged every civilization within 50 light-years. We know who's peaceful, who's aggressive, and who's conquest-minded. We know your empire's expansion pattern, your supply routes, and your next 17 target systems. The tactical display behind Chin showed a three-dimensional map of local space. Zilithian territory was marked in red, with movement vectors showing their expansion pattern. But overlaid on the map were blue zones, areas marked as Human Intelligence Network. You see, Commander, we made a decision long ago. We could either wait for the galaxy to come to us, or we could start preparing for the galaxy. We chose preparation. Sir, Yexlara whispered urgently, I'm detecting massive energy signatures from their inner system. Something's powering up near their star. Chen's smile widened. Ah, you noticed our little solar project. We've been working on that for 20 years. Would you like to see it? The view screen shifted to show Earth-Sun, but something was wrong. Massive structures orbited the star, collecting and focusing its energy. Solar collection arrays larger than planets, all connected by streams of coherent light. We call it the Prometheus Array. Chen explained. It can collect and focus stellar energy into a coherent beam. Effective range is roughly 100 light-years. We've been using it to power our deep space sensor networks, but it has other applications. You're threatening to destroy our homeworld, Vexthal breathed. No, Commander. We're threatening to destroy every world in your empire simultaneously. The array can split its beam into multiple targeting solutions. We've identified 47 inhabited Zilithian worlds. At full power, we can sterilize all of them within 36 hours. The bridge erupted in alarm calls. Officers frantically worked their consoles, trying to verify the impossible claim. But the energy readings were undeniable. The humans had built a weapon that could kill stars. This is madness, Vexthal said. You would commit genocide over preemptive invasion? Commander, this isn't preemptive. You've already begun. Your forward scouts have been infiltrating our outer system for months. Your industrial ships have been harvesting asteroids to build a supply base. Your communication arrays have been probing our defenses. From our perspective, we're already at war. Chin stepped closer to the camera, and Vexthal could see something in the human's eyes that transcended mere determination. It was the look of a species that had accepted the ultimate responsibility. We gave you one warning. Commander, we told you to leave. That was your second chance. We don't give third chances. But surely you can't destroy entire civilizations over a territorial dispute. Commander, your empire has destroyed 47 worlds. Billions of sentient beings. You don't negotiate with conquerors. You eliminate them. It's the only way to ensure they don't threaten anyone else. The tactical display showed the Prometheus array rotating, its massive focusing lenses aligning with distant stars. Each movement was tracked by indicators showing Zilithian worlds that would die if the weapon fired. Sir, ZH called out, our long-range sensors are detecting similar energy signatures in other systems. The humans aren't alone. What? I'm reading weapons platforms in the vegan system, the Proxima colonies, even the Centauri trade routes. They're all powered by the same stellar energy technology. Chin nodded approvingly. The Stellar Defense Alliance. 32 species, all dedicated to preventing galactic conquest. We've been building this network for decades, waiting for someone like you to force our hand. You're creating a galactic war. No, Commander. We're ending one. Your war. Your empire's expansion stops here. Today, you have 1 hour to recall all Zilithian forces to your home system. After that, we start eliminating Zilithian worlds one by one until your empire surrenders unconditionally. The transmission cut off, leaving the bridge in stunned silence. Vexthol stared at the tactical display, watching as human weapons platforms across the galaxy powered up in perfect coordination. An entire interstellar civilization had been waiting for this moment, preparing for this confrontation. Sir, Redon said quietly, we're receiving surrender requests from our other fleets. They're all facing similar weapons platforms. The humans they've surrounded our entire empire. Vexthol realized with crystal clarity that they had made a fundamental error. They hadn't invaded a primitive world. They had attacked the central node of a galactic defense network, and humanity had been waiting for them to make exactly this mistake. The command center of the Dominion's edge had become a tomb of shattered pride. Vexthol sat in his throne, staring at the cascade of surrender messages flooding in from across the Zilithian Empire. Fleet after fleet, world after world, all reporting the same impossible reality. Humanity had outmaneuvered them completely. Sir, Yexlar reported, her voice hollow, confirmed weapons platforms in 31 systems. Each one is powerful enough to sterilize an entire world. They're all connected through quantum communication networks, all controlled from Earth. How do we miss this? How did our intelligence networks fail so completely? Science Officer Krelva manipulated the holographic display, showing the true scope of humanity's preparation. Sir, they didn't build this network in secret. They built it in plain sight. Every deep space construction project, every solar energy installation, every peaceful research station. They were all components of a massive weapon system. The display showed construction timelines spanning decades. Humans have been building their galactic defense network for longer than most Zilithian officers had been alive. They made it look like infrastructure development, Krelva continued. Solar collectors for energy independence, deep space sensors for scientific research, quantum communication arrays for interstellar commerce. But it was all designed to work together as a weapon system. Sir, Communications Officer Redhan interrupted. General Chun is requesting another meeting. He says it's time for the final phase. Vexthol felt his spirit break a little more. Put him through? Chun appeared on screen, but this time he wasn't in the command center. He stood in what appeared to be a vast chamber filled with holographic displays, showing star systems across the galaxy. Each display showed Zilithian worlds, and each world was targeted by weapons capable of ending all life on its surface. Commander Vexthol, Chin said, his voice carrying the weight of absolute authority. Your empire has 43 minutes to comply with our demands. I thought you might want to see what happens if you don't. The display shifted show one of the outer Zilithian colonies, a small world called Threshkar. It was a mining planet, home to roughly 50 million Zilithians. As they watched, a beam of focused stellar energy reached across space and touched the planet's surface. Threshkar didn't explode. It simply ended. The beam lasted for exactly 30 seconds, and when it faded, the planet was a molten ball of rock. No atmosphere, no life, no trace of a civilization had ever existed there. That was a demonstration, Chin said calmly. One of your smaller colonies. The beam was set to minimum power. At full intensity, we can destroy a planet in 3 seconds. Vexthol's exoskeleton felt like it was crushing his organs. You just murdered 50 million people. I eliminated a military target. Freshkar was your primary weapons manufacturing facility for the sector. It was also the staging ground for your planned invasion of the Rigel system. We've been monitoring your communications for months. Commander, we know your Empire's expansion plans better than you do. The holographic display showed detailed intelligence reports, troop movements, supply routes, strategic planning sessions. The humans have been inside the Zilithian command structure for years. How? Vexthol whispered. Because we're very good at making friends. Commander, every species you've conquered, every world you've destroyed, every civilization you've enslaved, they all had survivors, refugees, scientists, military officers, and they all wanted revenge. The display showed faces, dozens of different species, all working together in what appeared to be a massive intelligence network. Altarians, vegans, Proximians, and dozens of others, all coordinating with human forces. You created the resistance that's destroying you, Chin continued. Every act of conquest drove more survivors to us. Every world you burned added to our knowledge of your capabilities. Every species you enslaved provided us with insider intelligence. But why? Why would you risk everything for species you've never met? Chen's expression softened slightly. Because we recognize the pattern, Commander. 300 years ago, we were just like you. We conquered, we enslaved, we destroyed anyone who opposed us. We called it manifest destiny, colonial expansion, bringing civilization to the barbarians. We told ourselves we were making the galaxy better. The display showed scenes from Earth's history, wars, conquests, civilizations rising and falling in cycles of violence. It took us millennia to learn that conquest doesn't create stability. It creates resistance. And resistance eventually wins, because conquered peoples fight harder than conquerors. They fight for their homes, their children, their very existence. Conquerors fight for profit and glory. Guess which motivation is stronger? Vexthol realized he was witnessing something unprecedented in galactic history. A species that had chosen to abandon conquest, not from weakness, but from wisdom. So we made a choice, Chin continued. We would never again be conquerors. But we would also never again allow conquest to succeed. We would build a network of mutual defense so strong that no empire could rise to threaten the galaxy again. But you're doing the same thing we did. You're using force to impose your will. No, Commander, we're using force to prevent the imposition of will. There's a difference. We don't want to rule your people. We want to free them. Every world in your empire will be given the choice to remain independent or join our defensive alliance. We won't force anyone to adopt our system of government or our values. We'll simply prevent anyone from forcing their system on others. The display showed the Zilithian Empire's true structure, dozens of conquered worlds, billions of enslaved beings, entire civilizations reduced to resource extraction for the Zilithian military machine. Your empire ends today, Commander, not because we want to destroy you, but because we want to free everyone you've enslaved. The Zilithian people themselves will be offered the same choice as everyone else, independence or alliance. But the Zilithian Empire dies here. Sir, Yexlara called out urgently. I'm detecting massive energy signatures from our home system. The humans are powering up their weapons. 37 minutes, Commander, Chin said. Every minute you delay, another world dies. Choose quickly. Vexthol looked around the bridge at his officers. Beings who had served with honor, who had followed orders, who had believed they were building something greater than themselves. They had been soldiers in an empire that had never questioned its right to expand, to conquer, to rule. Now they were about to become the last generation of that empire. Sir, Redhan said quietly, incoming transmission from High Command. They're ordering us to surrender. Vexthol closed his eyes and felt the weight of history settling on his shoulders. His empire was ending not with glory or defiance, but with a quiet recognition that they had chosen the wrong path. "Open a channel to all Zilithian forces," he said finally. "This is Commander Vexthal. By order of the High Command, all Zilithian military forces will stand down immediately. The war is over." As he spoke the words, he realized that humanity had given them something no conqueror had ever offered, a chance to survive their own mistakes. 6 months after surrender, Vexthal stood in the observation deck of the New Horizon, watching as the last Zilithian prison ships departed from the Altarian system. The vessels carried former Zilithian administrators and military officers back to their homeworld, where they would face judgment from their own people. The New Horizon itself was a marvel of interspecies cooperation, a ship designed and built by the Stellar Defense Alliance, crewed by former enemies who had chosen to work together. Vexthal wore the uniform of the Alliance now, a simple blue design that bore no rank insignia, no medals, no symbols of conquest. "The last transport is away," reported his second-in-command, a former Altarian named Kethmora. She had lost her entire family in the Zilithian invasion, but had chosen to serve alongside her former enemies rather than demand revenge. All liberated worlds are reporting successful transitions to self-governance. Vexthal nodded, still adjusting to the reality that his former empire had dissolved not into chaos, but into a peaceful confederation of independent worlds. The humans had kept their promise. They had freed the conquered peoples and then stepped back, allowing each world to choose its own path. "Sir," Kethmora continued, "we're receiving a transmission from Earth. General Chin wants to debrief the mission. Put him through." Chin appeared on the view screen, but he looked different now. The weight of command had left his shoulders, and he wore civilian clothes. Behind him was an office that looked more like a university professor's study than a military command center. "Commander Vexthal," Chin said, and the title carried no trace of irony. "How are you adjusting to your new role?" "It's different," Vexthal admitted. "I spent my entire career believing that strength meant the ability to destroy. Now I'm learning that real strength means the ability to protect without destroying." "It's a hard lesson," Chin agreed. "We spent thousands of years learning it ourselves. The transition from conqueror to protector is never easy." "I have to ask," Vexthal said, "was any of it real? The weapons, the stellar array, the threat to destroy our worlds?" Chen's expression grew serious. "Every word was true. We built those weapons, we targeted your worlds, and we were prepared to use them. But we hoped we wouldn't have to. Because you knew we would surrender? Because we knew you were better than your empire." Intelligence reports showed that many Zilithian officers questioned the conquest policy. "Many of your worlds were unhappy with the constant warfare. We were betting that given a choice between extinction and evolution, you would choose evolution." Vexthal felt a complex mix of emotions, gratitude, shame, and something that might have been hope. "What happens now? Do you expect us to become humans?" "No," Chin said firmly. "We expect you to become the best version of yourselves. Every species in the Alliance maintains its own culture, its own government, its own values. We only ask that you respect the same rights in others. But what about the weapons? The stellar array? Will you keep them?" Chen's smile was sad. "The weapons are being dismantled. The stellar arrays are being converted to pure energy production. The quantum communication networks are being transferred to civilian control. We built them to end conquest, not to become conquerors ourselves." "You're disarming? But what if another empire rises?" "Then we'll deal with it the same way we dealt with yours, by building a coalition of the willing, by proving that cooperation is stronger than conquest, by showing that there's a better way to live among the stars." The view screen shifted to show construction projects across the galaxy. Former Zilithian worlds were building their own defenses, not for conquest, but for protection. Refugee populations were being resettled on new worlds. Research stations were being established to study and preserve the cultures that had survived the wars. "We're not naive," Chin continued. "We know that somewhere out there, another species is probably looking at the galaxy and dreaming of empire. But when they come, they'll find what you found, a network of free peoples who refuse to be conquered. And if they're stronger than we were, then we'll build stronger defenses. We'll form larger alliances. We'll find new ways to protect freedom. But we'll never again solve the problem of conquest by becoming conquerors ourselves. Vexthol looked out at the stars, seeing them not as territories to be claimed but as homes to be protected. I understand now why you didn't need a second chance. You had already learned from your mistakes. We learn from our mistakes, yes, but more importantly, we learn from yours. Every species that chooses conquest eventually faces the same choice we gave you: evolve or die. We chose evolution. You chose evolution. Someday, every species in the galaxy will make that choice. And if they don't, Chen's expression hardened slightly. Then they'll discover what we discovered, that a galaxy united in defense is stronger than any empire united in conquest. The age of galactic empires is over. The age of galactic cooperation has begun. The transmission ended, leaving Vexthol alone with his thoughts. Around him, the New Horizon continued its patrol, not as a conqueror but as a guardian. Former enemies worked side by side, bound together by the shared recognition that they had all been given something precious, a chance to be better than they had been. As the ship entered hyperspace, heading for its next assignment, Vexthol reflected on the strange turn his life had taken. He had begun as a conqueror, believing that strength meant the ability to destroy. He had learned that true strength meant the ability to protect. But perhaps most importantly, he had learned that the strongest civilizations were those that chose to lift others up rather than tear them down. The humans had not just defeated the Zilithian Empire, they had transformed it into something better. And in doing so, they had proven that the galaxy's greatest weapon was not any stellar array or quantum communicator, but the simple recognition that every species deserved the chance to grow, to learn, and to choose its own path among the stars. The age of conquest was over. The age of cooperation had begun. And for the first time in his life, Vexthol looked forward to what tomorrow might bring.